In late 2001, he had a really bad pneumonia. He had an abnormal chest x-ray, and so the doctor went ahead and sent him to have a spiral CT and wanted him to go see a pulmonologist. In 2002, he actually saw the pulmonologist for the first time. He was given a probable diagnosis of sarcoidosis, and he began to see the pulmonologist for maybe about every, I can't remember exactly, 3 to 4 months to have pulmonary functions done and to look at how well he was moving, oxygen in his body. So they did some other tests as well. But he kept that probable sarcoidosis diagnosis for over 2 years. Probably around 2003 or 4, I started noticing a lot more subtle changes, and it was getting harder to keep up with the yard work, and just getting more out of breath on walks and things. But he was still, absolutely determined that, he wasn't that sick. He did agree to go ahead and make an appointment and go back to the pulmonologist, and they did a lung biopsy. And that's really the only true way to get a diagnosis of IPF at that time, pulmonary fibrosis at that time, and he was told he had IPF. So it was November, I believe, of 2004 when he actually was given that diagnosis. It was becoming apparent that, he wasn't really doing as well as he had. In late 2005, the doctor was concerned that he was dropping his oxygen at night, so they did a test where they monitored it and found out that he was dropping pretty low, dangerously low. And so I think it was in October or November, they put him on O2 at night with a concentrator, but he still could go to work, and it was hard. He was getting more and more tired. It was just really obvious he wasn't doing as well. So I think it was actually in early December of 2005, the doctor told him he really should stay home from work. He was sometimes we'd hook up both tanks of oxygen and give him as much as we could. He'd had a lung transplant evaluation in the fall of '04 or spring of '05. But, the one thing that they'd said to him that stuck with him was, well, you'll know when you need a transplant because you won't be working anymore. You won't be able to care for yourself. And he was still doing all those things up until December of that year. He went into the hospital on the 24th of December for 4 days with a virus, and his daughter had just gotten into town. She came to spend Christmas with us. He spent the whole Christmas in the hospital, got out. On January the 9th, I got a phone call from my sister, who we all live pretty close, and she'd been over to see Russ and take him some lunch, and he wasn't doing very well at all. And so I asked if he could be more specific, and he said, no, I just not doing very well. So I came home, and we talked for a little bit, and I finally said, do you want to go to the hospital? And he goes, yeah. So I said, well, can you get to the car? And he couldn't. So we had to call an ambulance, and he went to the hospital, and by 8:30 the next morning, he was gone. So I don't know if his progression was similar to everyone else's. It seems like that because he kept himself going for so long that he kind of did pulmonary rehab on the side. But when he went very fast. And so, from a quality of life perspective, here he was at 57, and, you're having to make decisions about whether or not you can enjoy the things that you're supposed to be able to enjoy at that point in your life. It's very sad he never got to meet his grandsons, and never will get to enjoy them. And as I might have mentioned or didn't mention, he died at 59. So, he was young. He had his whole life yet ahead of him.